to elevate and improve, and they brought me. Now I'm nervous, folks. Thank you for the opportunity. We had a great day today, by the way, 3 hours, some incredible guests. I was looking at our text line, and the responses that we were getting from the listening audience was huge. They really appreciate the information. And it's easy for me because I love your industry. I love what you do. I understand the importance of the industry. I understand how you connect the dots and the role that you play in creating a vibrant economy throughout southeastern Louisiana. And with the number of folks that you have, 6,000 members of NOMAR, 15,000 members of the Louisiana portion of this, it's just absolutely incredible. So what I'm really nervous about is I'm talking to experts in the field, right? So what is it that I can say that you haven't heard already? So I'm going to flip the script a little bit and talk about the government's perspective of you and what my perspective of you was as an elected official, and maybe preach a little bit and maybe provide a little insight as to where I think that there could be significant improvement by you. I was influenced and was very fortunate as a very young man to provide security for some incredible leaders in this country. And I had the opportunity to sit down with them in a very casual way, and if you would allow me, I'll tell you a little bit about these stories and why I developed the perspective that I have about what government should be doing for an industry like yours. The first was Tip O'Neill. Every time Tip O'Neill came to town, I was with him. And I had some incredible conversations. I was 20-something years old. I didn't know how lucky I was at the time to be able to stand on the balcony of Lindy Boggs' apartment on Bourbon Street, which he loved more than anything in his life was to come to New Orleans, go to Broussard's restaurant, go stand on that balcony, smoke a cigar, and wave to everybody on the street. The common man, the common folk, the connection that he had there. The second person was Claire Booth Luce, the wife of Henry Luce, the editor of Time magazine, of Sports Illustrated, Vanity Fair, an absolutely incredible woman, a journalist in her own right, writing articles for each one of those. The conversations that I had with her, she was a two-time serving member of Congress, and her view of the role of what government should be and how it should facilitate businesses in the economy, I cannot tell you, you cannot replace those experiences at all. The third for me was Anna Chenault. I don't know if y'all remember General Claire Chenault of the Flying Tigers. Anna Chenault was a journalist as well, starting her career in the 1930s. I had the opportunity at least 3 or 4 times to spend several days with her here in the city of New Orleans. Actually, she has a connection to Monroe, Louisiana. And her view and the role that she played in bringing about the first communications between the United States, the role of the government, and the country of China, and why that was so important back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And the final person was Adolph Mars, the principal of Mars Candy Company. And at the time that I spent actually 14 days with Adolph, it was absolutely an eye-opening experience for me. They were the 4th wealthiest family in the world at the time. And his insight was, it blew me away about what he thought about companies in the modern era, how they should conduct themselves, and how they should give back to their respective communities. And I'll tell you this little story. One of the times that I was with him was for the Republican National Convention when they were in town. And we were supposed to go to a lunch with Barbara Bush, the First Lady. And everyone got out of the car, and he stayed in the car, and he was like, no, I'm not going. And his wife says, what do you mean you're not going? He goes, Newell and I are going to go down to Bourbon and Conti Street, and we're going to park this limo, and there's a Lucky Dog guy there. And we're going to eat Lucky Dogs, and I want to talk to the Lucky Dog guy. True story. We go. The Lucky Dog guy is sitting in the limo with us, having a beer, eating Lucky Dogs. And the most incredible thing was how in tuned he was to where this man was in his life, what he was going to do in life, and where he saw his life 5 to 10 years out. And we were there for 2.5 hours. And it was absolutely insane. Now, all of this Republican National Convention stuff's going on in the background, right? There's a lot of speculation about who the vice president was going to be. Nobody thought it would be Dan Quayle. And here he is, the operator of one of the largest businesses in the United States, if not in the world, and his desire was to spend time with the regular Joe, the regular guy, and probe him about where he sees himself today. How does he view the economy? He asked him about world politics. He asked him about some of the most incredible stuff. But the interesting thing was, in his company, he believed that no one should have a private office, and they did not. The CEO of Mars Candy Company did not have a private office. And he said, if you can't say what you need to say in front of everybody else, it doesn't need to be said. And he believed in open and full transparency. He believed that the role of government should be limited, and it should get out of the way and let the private sector do what they need to do. But we should not forget the regular Joe, the common man, the one turning the wrenches each and every day. That theme ran through all 4 of these individuals. And the other theme that ran through these 4 individuals, too, was never fear consequences. Embrace them. You're not going to make the right decision all the time. You're going to make wrong decisions. And wrong decision is different from a bad decision. And the way that you get there is a different path, a different trail. And it was interesting that these folks, different walks of life, all very successful in their own right, both Democrats and Republicans, and always said, speak your truth. It was another theme that ran through all of them. And again, never worry about the consequences. That leads me to what I think is incredibly important for you as an industry. I went to the website and I noticed that your advocacy mission was vote, act, invest. And those are all great characteristics of how to get involved. But I think it's missing something, quite frankly, is you guys are the experts. Y'all are the leaders in an industry that is responsible for a large percentage of GDP in this area of the state and otherwise. The folks that you employ, the influence that you have. I would tell you that you are today's influencers in many ways, so get to it and go influence. Because there are barriers that government every day is putting in your way. They're making decisions. They're not calling upon you for your advice on a daily basis before they embark upon some of the policy changes that they're going to be making. And believe me, they're thinking about them and making them all the time. And a lot of times, as government goes, they don't connect the dots. And when they don't connect the dots, what happens? You have a permitting office that doesn't work, right? They're not keeping the technology up. You probably won't be surprised to hear that a lot of the city and a lot of parish governments in this region are still on an IBM AS400. They feared the consumption of political capital to make the transition to more modern technology, and they felt like they didn't have the time to do it, and they didn't. And who suffered? Your industry. Because they're not able to process this paper in the most effective, efficient way today to make sure that you can get through that process in a very quick fashion. You should be there every step of the way to make sure that they actually do it. And pay attention to the granular details of why things are not happening. What else happened? Lack of code enforcement. Code enforcement, to me, as the sheriff, was one of the most important things that local government does. And as Tip O'Neill used to say, all politics are local. You have to compel political leadership to consume political capital because they will not do it willingly. It's contrary to their best interest, but it also destroys your industry. We have huge swaths of real estate out there that are, for the most part, if I want to get raw, they're not marketable. That's less inventory that you have to get involved in, to make a living, to move the economy. Every dollar that exchanges hands turns over 7 times in a microeconomy. All of those things are removed because we're not paying attention, government that is, to the granular detail. We have no desire to consume political capital. We're not going to make the tough decisions. We're thinking about the consequence of what we are about to do and embark on more so than what is the greater good to the economy. I just had the mayoral candidates on my show, and I asked them certain questions along this line. Quite frankly, they were very uncomfortable in talking about it because of the political consequence. But how do we get from point A to point B? How do we improve? How do we get to a more vibrant, sustainable economy if large swaths of real estate truly are not marketable? So what am I talking about? I spend time driving around the city every week, intentionally, different parts of the city. Because if I'm talking about it on my show, I want to have seen it, right? So what do I see? Empty lots overgrown, that's a given. Fences that are not repaired, that's all over the place. 40-foot and 20-foot containers in the middle of an empty lot next to a residence. Not to mention the blighted houses. We still have 22,000 blighted homes in Orleans Parish. We were promised under a former administration that that was going to go away. It was not going to be a problem. We focused on the consequence. What was it? We had landowners that couldn't afford to pay the taxes. We had landowners that couldn't afford to keep up the property. The consequence was we were going to have to make tough decisions as to how we were going to move forward with that. There's an entire legal process set up to deal with that called adjudicated properties. We didn't do it. We moved from 33,000 to 22,000 over a 20-year period. Anybody in here believe that that's efficient? Anyone believe that that's effective? Does anyone believe that that truly has not impacted your industry in a very negative way? All the positives, that you bring to the table, all of the momentum that y'all have created, the ethical standards developed by your industry, the continuing education that you're going through today, the presentations that you're hearing, all of the positives are diminished each and every day by government action, or more importantly, government inaction, because we're not willing to consume political capital. Things don't just happen. You have to make them happen. And the entity's interest always outweighs the individual. Who's the entity? Your industry. All of you are participating individuals. Human nature is you're going to do what's in your best interest. I get it. Think bigger than that. Think broader than that. Become the visionary of advocacy about how collectively you as members carry the big stick and can effect transformational change in this metropolitan area. This is not just about the city of New Orleans. This is every parish, folks. There's not a single parish around here that doesn't have challenges with code enforcement and doesn't have challenges with permitting, right? Is that true? Yeah. But it won't change quick enough to satisfy you if you give a damn, and the only way you're going to get there is by making it happen. It's the only way. One of the most successful things that ever happened to me in the sheriff's office was neighborhood watch groups. Taking ownership, neighbors taking ownership, creating that collaborative effort with government, making sure that you were providing the information each and every day to affect what? Change. You knew what fit in your neighborhood better than the JPSO ever did. We're not there every day. You are. Folks used to tell me all the time, well, I felt funny about calling. That's what we're there for. That's what you're paying us for. Take advantage of it. Become the advocate in your neighborhood. Compel political leadership to act. Because contrary to common belief, many folks talk about action. Most don't engage in action. And I don't think I think if you really are honest with yourself, and we tend to stare the obvious in the face a lot and walk right around it, you know what the downstream implications are of that inaction. It's why we believe and we have the momentum and what's going on here today of people feeling great. Why? Because we're about to have a change in political leadership. That happens every time there is. It doesn't matter who the person is. It doesn't matter if it's a D, an R, white, black, male, female. It always happens. We'll know in 6 months whether or not it's going to be meaningful. But this is the most incredible opportunity that this industry has to impact and affect change in what's going on in the city right now and in the upcoming elections in Jefferson Parish and the outlying parishes that are on a different election cycle. That's the moment. It's actually your moment as to how much capacity do you want to create of inventory of real estate that is effectively marketable. Because think about that. We can all remember about areas that were once just incredibly beautiful. So bear with me, let me tell you this brief story, and then I'll bring my comments to an end. I used to travel down to Sarasota, Florida every year back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Had a friend from New Jersey whose family had a condo on Longboat Key. And we would fly to Tampa Bay, and we would rent a car and drive an hour south to Sarasota. And there's 5 keys there right off the coast of Sarasota. And on that drive of an hour, every year, for like 7 years in a row, never saw a single piece of garbage on the interstate. Not one. We drive into Sarasota, Florida, looking around. Everything's clean. The McDonald's looks great. Burger King's like unbelievable. Landscaping all over the place. Signage appropriately placed, not obnoxious, right? And about year 5 or 6, I reached out to a guy that I went to the FBI Academy who was working in Sarasota. I said, "You available for lunch?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, I want to talk to you about what's going on here. I have some questions that I want to ask. So we met for lunch. I said, let me ask you something. How do y'all do this? You know, the parking lots of the fast food joints are clean. There's no oil spill all over the place. There's not garbage anywhere. The dumpsters are surrounded by a fence. There's actually, at that time, and we didn't have this in our code here at the time, a hot water spigot right there by the dumpster. You know, the parking lots, they shine. I mean, it's unbelievable. And I said, I went by your alleged Skid Row. It looks like Old Metairie. I don't get it. How do we get here? He says, you know, Newell, I moved here about 12 years ago, 12 years prior to that. And he said it was amazing for me. I came from the Northeast. And he said there's a huge difference in the way people think. And I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, we set the bar, and we're not willing to accept anything less. And he said, if they don't do what's required, they're going to get cited. They're going to have to, they'll be called into a court, a municipal court, and they're going to have to answer for not doing what they're supposed to do. And it's the only way that we're able to maintain the beauty that you see here today. Is we set the bar, and we are not willing to accept anything less. And that's a type of advocacy that it takes, because what he did tell me is that it didn't always look like this. We had a lot of challenges. It's a very artsy, a lot of transient folks that move through that area. And he said, but we realized that the quality of life, our investment in our property, our equity in our homes were all being, diminished. And we needed to stand up and advocate for something. So it was simple. That was our mantra. We're setting the bar, and we're not willing to accept anything less. And you recognized it right away. You saw the impact of that change in the philosophy and the outlook of how government is going to act upon the challenges that they face each and every day. On the west bank of Jefferson Parish, while I was sheriff, we had a number of issues, and even before I was sheriff. And we had traditional neighborhoods. I don't need to name them. You can take this neighborhood and put it in any jurisdiction around this country, and you're going to see similar situations happen. You'd go into the neighborhood, retail out front, maybe multifamily, the next layer, and then single family residence behind that. And as the multifamily units moved from one owner to multiple owners, things began to change, right? Everybody had a different perspective as to how they were going to manage their property, as opposed to working with one. For government, it was very difficult to deal with multiple owners. So what do? The truth is we did nothing. And the truth is we lost that neighborhood. The truth is it became one of the most violent neighborhoods in our community. And the truth is it took us 10 years to get it back. And it was never brought back to what it once was, nor will it ever be what it once was. So that's the outcomes that we need to face, the reality of government inaction. We all knew what was happening, but again, you couldn't move people to consume, what they thought that they were elected to do to change, to consume political capital. They weren't willing to do it. And no one stood up. And it wasn't until people started to stand up, but they were sick and tired of it, the few original inhabitants of the neighborhood, that things began to change. So I don't mean to be like the guy, with the glass half empty. But I'm curious as to whether or not you guys realize the strength and the power that y'all have in this real estate industry. I think you underestimate it. Because a lot of the places where I go and I just observe and I talk to a lot of people, and 8 years as a radio talk show host now, I'm just listening, watching, observing. I watch all the council meetings in the region, replay. I don't see a lot of folks from your industry there. I don't see a lot of folks advocating there at that granular level, paying attention to these little small changes that are going on that are really impacting your industry day in and day out. And if you wait too long, the net effect is large swaths of inventory not available to you to buy, to sell, to represent, whether it's commercial, residential, industrial. So I'll repeat it. You guys have the capacity to be some of the most incredible influencers of today's time, today's world. Get to it. Go do it. And you'll see the benefits. And you know what? The community will respect you more than they respect you today. Because they have the ability to connect that dot. Trust me on that. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here with you today. I really appreciate it. Have a great afternoon this afternoon, and we are very humbled by the fact that WWL was able to participate here today. Had some great interviews, folks that y'all really should be very, very proud of. I mean, they just knocked it out of the park today, and it was a pleasure for me to spend time with y'all today as well. Have a great week and a great weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank you again, Mr. Newell Norman. All right.